right, we are ready to kick off Elevánt Insights February edition. And it doesn't even feel like February out there. It's starting to feel like spring. And according to my 5-year-old, the hedgehog did not see its shadow. So hopefully we'll get an early spring here. So as we kind of wait for a few attendees to jump on, we're excited about today. Today we've got a great guest as part of our Elevánt Insights webinar, and we actually have our first live guest in the office. And funny enough, I am not in the office with them, but Dan is in the office with them. I'm over in the Burley office today, so we could have just had one big party together. But but today we are excited to be talking about travel. You know, one of our best attended webinars last year was on travel, and as we get the opportunity to review so many of your goals and hopes and dreams, you know, in retirement, many of you have high hopes and excited about your travel opportunities throughout retirement. And so we felt like it was a great opportunity to dive into that topic again. Before we jump into that and have Dan introduce our guest, I wanted to start with just our traditional Elevánt Insight for this month's webinar. So the Elevánt Insight today, if you know me, you know I'm generally an optimistic person. But a little secret I want everyone to know about that is that is a choice that I make. It isn't necessarily how I always feel. And Dan knows this about me, but he gets some of the pessimistic sides of me when I have a moment, as we all do. But optimism, as I believe it, is very much a choice. So just the definition of optimism: hopefulness and confidence about the future or the successful outcomes of something. And so the interesting thing about the world that we live in and the media and the 24-hour news cycle that we have is that we can find a talking head that will tell us exactly what we want to hear. So if we want to hear all the reasons why the world is coming to an end and the government's going to shut down and the dollar's going to devalue and the world as we know it is going to really struggle, there are people out there, and very credible people out there, that will give us that information exactly as we want to hear it. On the flip side, if we want to hear optimistic things about where the markets could go, or where our country is going, or where politics may be going, these are all touchy subjects, as I know, this year. But there's positive things out there as well, and so we get the opportunity to consume whatever we choose, and we can live a life of optimism if we choose it. And so I'd invite all of us to just live a life of optimism, because as we know, if we worry about things that never happen, we're wasting our energy. And if we worry about things before they happen, then we're feeling those negative feelings twice, and which is unnecessary in our lives. And so that is my Elevánt Insight for the month: is just choose optimism. If you have a choice, you might as well live in hope and optimism versus fear and anxiety. So and in that, it's very difficult to not be optimistic and happy when you're on vacation, right, Robin?
Exactly.
So we're more excited about talking about this than the markets or elections or anything else. And so Dan, why don't you take it away and introduce our guest and kind of get us excited about talking about travel.
Great, thanks, Brian. Appreciate that very much. And just so the rest of you know, those have only been 1 or 2 moments in the 6 years I've been working with Brian that he's not been completely optimistic. So either he hides it well, or it just doesn't happen in his life. I've known Robin Stanhope for, I think, as many years as I've been in Twin Falls. And Brian's message is kind of a definition of who Robin is, and that's optimism. She is always very optimistic. If you haven't met Robin at a Twin Falls Chamber event, you haven't been going, because she's generally always there. Always at Optimist Club, done a lot of projects over the last few years. what, 20 or 30?
I joined in 91.
91. So that also happens to be the year that she got into the travel industry. And just full disclosure, Robin has helped me with some travel in the past, but she's on her fourth time of trying to retire out of the travel. Third. So she doesn't want any phone calls. What she's offering is her expertise and her years of experience to our clients as kind of a resource to where to go, and we'll certainly give her company credit as Desert Sun as who she's working. We'll give her a little bit time later on to tell a little bit more about that. But maybe you could start out, Robin, just in general, some of the travel tips that you would suggest, and we're going to kind of, Brian and I will ask some questions back and forth and try and be pretty discussion type process as we go through this. So,
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you. I'm excited to be here, kind of. Dan asked me a couple times, and I kept saying I'm retired. I don't think that's going to work. And then I went back to work again a couple weeks ago to kind of help out that way. But you know, I never really thought about travel and retirement until I did it myself. And I'm like going, okay, the first thing I should have done when we decided when we were going to retire is schedule out my retirement travel the first year, because it all happened so fast and the year's over and we're like, we didn't even go anywhere this last year. So, you know, it just comes down to what you like to do. But to lean on Brian a little bit, and the optimism of it is that when you travel, the best thing that you can do, and the biggest tip I tell my clients all the time is to look at the positive side of it and just be prepared that there could be a couple bumps in the road. You know, the flight could be late, or you know, if you're going on a cruise, maybe the ship is a little bit late getting going and stuff like that. And just look at the big picture, because of what you're going to be doing the following day. You're not going to remember what happened the day before that the flights were late. So how do you prepare for that? A lot of it is make sure that you take your documents and keep them with you all the time. I'm really bad about note taking and stuff like that. Dan doesn't know that bad about me. It drives my husband absolutely nuts. But when I travel, and it doesn't matter, we've been to Greece, we've been to Ireland, we've done about 50 plus cruises and stuff. I have this little bag that I do, and it has envelopes in it. And every envelope has a purpose. One is my airline tickets, one is my hotel, one is my transfer. That way I know by the time I get to the end of it, that's my destination, and I don't have to worry about anything else, because everything has come out really good for me. And you know, and you just have to kind of think on the big picture of it, of what you want to do, how you want to do it, and then that's what we're here for. So you come to us with the ideas of what you would like to do, and then we take it away from you and make it very simple. We have a couple questions for you, whether you're talking to a friend, whether you're talking to somebody on the phone, whether you're trying to do your travel at the you know, by yourself. It all comes down to what it is do you want to get out of the trip.
so let me ask, what would be some of the general travel tips now that we're post-COVID? Has that changed at all?
It has changed a little bit. They're finally starting to kind of fall back into it a little bit. Airline tickets are a number one thing. Those of you that have traveled, not just business, but with vacations and stuff, when you buy insurance, a lot of people would include the airline ticket with it. Now with COVID, and it can change any day, but it's been this way for the last 3 years, 4 years. If you buy an airline ticket and you don't go, you don't need to buy the insurance on it unless you're more comfortable of you wanting a full refund on it. But the airlines are not charging to change your tickets anymore. It used to be a change fee on it. What you will end up is you'll have a year to reuse your airline ticket. There'll be no fee, but depending on what you use your airline ticket for, there may be an increase in fare. Because if it's not the same place, or even if it is, but it's a shorter, you know, time of when you are going to travel. So
what about banks, cell phones, internet access, all those kinds of things?
Well, my biggest thing is with that, a couple of things. One, if you're gonna travel internationally, and that includes the Caribbean and Mexico, type thing that way, is to let your bank know that you are gonna be out of town from this time to this time, or out of the country from this time. That way, and then give them, an emergency contact type thing. You've got your phone number, but if you don't have international calling on your phone, make sure that it's, it's somebody else that can watch out for you. That way, if there's anything that goes wrong, then you've got them to back you. But more importantly, if you don't let them know, there's that possibility I can vouch for. When we went to Greece, I didn't even think anything about it. I started travel in 91 and we went in 92. And I went to use my credit card to check into the hotel and it got blocked. And it got blocked because my bank at that time was protecting me. So then I had to get on the phone and find out what was going on because I had never traveled before. And so it kind of caught them off guard a little bit.
Yeah.
The other thing is you'd have to double check with your phone company that you do. I don't know if I can say advertising. I guess I'll do it and beg for forgiveness later, but
Sure.
Ours is Verizon. So anytime we travel internationally, we always call them, depending on where we're going, and find out if they have an international plan on it. We get that. That way we can call home, check with the kids and all that. But then when you come back, you call them again and it's prorated. So you don't pay for 30 days of international calling that you really don't need. If you're gone for 5 days or a week, that's all you pay for. So that would be something that I would highly recommend, and I do recommend to my clients to double check on that as a protection for yourself.
What about maybe TSA check-in? Is that worth it? I guess if you're traveling a lot, it would be.
Are you talking about the fee that you can do where you can bypass the line?
Correct.
Yeah, if you're only going to travel once, it can, I don't even know what the fee is on it now. I want to say it's like $98 and it's good for a couple of years. But a lot of it depends on too, is what your airline ticket is. We travel Comfort Plus. When we get Comfort Plus, a lot of times we get bumped over where we don't have to do TSA check-in, type of a thing that way. The best part about that, bypassing that, is you don't have to take your shoes off, which drives me nuts. It slows everything down to be able to do that. But if you travel 2 or 3 times, especially if it's international vacation per se, it is highly recommended that you do that for yourself, because it will save you a lot of time to do that.
So I just recently went on a cruise with my son from Alaska, and we survived. It was a challenge. They originally had planned to fly from Anchorage to LAX on Tuesday. That got bumped to Wednesday. Finally, they flew out on Thursday, and then they got as far as Seattle, and long story short, their flight was canceled, and so now he's stuck in Seattle trying to find out how to get on his way to LAX.
Yeah.
And so what would you say, and it would be a way to prepare for something like that? I mean, they basically were stuck at that hotel. It was nasty weather in Seattle, stuck at that hotel. They had to go out and buy diapers for the baby, and they really didn't have much with them other than their carry-ons.
Well, probably the biggest thing that I would do is, first of all, I would be concerned about my airline ticket. Don't call, if you book it through a travel agency, don't call the travel agency, because they don't have possession of the airline ticket any longer since you've already checked in. If you're at the airport, which it sounds like maybe he was, then you could go and get in line with all the other hundreds of people that can't get on that flight. The number one thing that I always do is I carry in my phone the 800 numbers of what airlines I'm going to be using. And the minute I hear that, I get on the phone. I don't care if I'm sitting right there by the desk or anything. I get on the phone. There's more help there, and you get the one-on-one that way, because they don't have people lined up to do it. The other thing that I would recommend, and I do this in no matter what I do in life and stuff, if I don't like the information I'm getting, I hang up and I call back and I get another person. type of a thing. You know, and it's always worked that way. But yeah, and then you just have to be patient. I mean, depending on why it's canceled or whatever that way, but I just don't think I would leave, and I don't recommend leaving the airport until you are confirmed on another flight.
Okay, cool. That's a lot of the same things he ended up doing.
Yeah.
But it was a challenging situation to get him to LAX. Well, we did get him there, and he made the cruise, so it turned out well. Brian, I'm taking up all the question. Do you have anything off the top of your head you want to beginning ask Robin?
Come on,
You know,
Brian.
I think, yeah, I think the number one thing that we hear from people who don't want to travel is just that it's a lot of work. I don't know that that's avoidable. I know when I try to travel with my 4 kids, we always come home saying we're never going to do that again, you know. But you've given us some great tips on maybe how to prepare for some of that work and chaos ahead of time, which is great. The one question I have for you is, with your experience as a travel agent, is there probably my biggest frustration is just actually booking the trips, you know, like trying to do the Google Flights or Priceline, or, you know, trying to do all these things that you feel like are helping you save money. But in reality, I feel like it just creates a lot of chaos. And so anyways, I'm just wondering, how do travel agents generally get paid? You know, where you're kind of talking as a retired travel agent, you kind of know how that works. And does it normally cost more if you use a travel agent for the service of bringing everything together and saying, hey, I just want to go here to Costa Rica, and here's all the people going, make it as easy as possible for us. What does that type of service cost typically?
You know, we get that call every single day, or somebody will walk in and do it. We charge $50 a booking. So if you came in and you wanted to go to Costa Rica and you wanted to take your 4 kids, and maybe another couple or something, it's $50 per booking. So if you have 2 different reservation numbers, it's 50 each. How do we make it? I would say probably 99% of the travel agencies are part of consortiums. Like locally, we're about the only ones left. AAA has a little bit, but most of their travel is done up out of the Boise area. But our consortium is Travel Leaders. And what's good about that is Travel Leaders is known nationwide. And so it gives them a little bit more of a buying power. It's kind of like, for me, if I want to do on a cruise, I stick with the cruise lines that I cruise on a lot, because I build up status with them to where I can get bigger discounts than what maybe Dan could get because of my repeat. And that's how Travel Leaders works with the different cruise companies. Now, like I'm going to use Carnival for one. They don't sell much Carnival, so it's like booking it online. If you go with Royal or Princess or Holland or something like that, those are big cruise lines that are part of the Travel Leaders family that they do that. So it gives us a little bit more buying power to be able to do that. If you need airline tickets and you're doing a package per se, whether it be going to Belize, whether it be going on a cruise, it doesn't matter. That is included in that $50 price. And then if you're doing airline tickets separate because you've already booked your cruise, then it's $35 a ticket. So in that case, I would recommend, if you're comfortable and you've done it before, then I would recommend you doing your airline ticket directly with the airline, and save you $35 a ticket. What I don't recommend, and I'll probably be in trouble for this, is that I don't recommend people booking online booking engines. And the reason why is because they have gone in and they've bought a block of seats on a airline, and they have to sell them, whether they buy them, whether they sell them or they don't, they still have to pay for them. The problem that we run into with that, we probably get calls 2 or 3 times a week that they checked at the airport and they can't get on the plane because Delta doesn't show a confirmation. That happens a lot with online booking engines, not so much as Travelocity as it does, booking.com and the different ones that they've got out there. to do it that way. The only recommendation I would say on something like that is if that's what you want to do, you're comfortable doing that, get the record locator of that particular airline, go online and see if you can look it up yourself or call the airline and make sure that way. And how I tell people to do it is don't say anything about the online booking, that you want to look to see maybe what was available to change your seats or something to see if they can even pull it up. Because that happens a lot. Does that kind of help you?
Yeah, it does. I think, you know, there's so many different ways to book trips, and I feel like you kind of get that feeling sometimes where the prices change every 30 seconds. You know, you log out, they kick you out. We've had such scenarios where we'll be halfway through a booking and then they'll say, sorry, the price has changed, and they kick you back out and they have to start all over. And so half the time we're doing things like that, we're like, man, this isn't even worth it. Let's just drive to Sun Valley or something, you know? And so I think COVID has increased that anxiety for people in reference to, especially airlines, you know, just the cancellations and the reschedules. And, you know, I think everyone has a story where last time they tried to fly that there was issues, you know? And obviously you can't control all of that, but outside of being prepared for it. But no, I definitely think there's some barriers to people wanting to travel, generally speaking, right now.
Well, and Brian, one thing I can say, and I can't speak for the other agencies, I know that their fees are higher up in the Boise area. But the good thing of it is here locally, because we are so local and they've been around for 30 plus years. The good thing of it is that you could call or stop by and say, this is what I want to do. They get the information, they send it to you. This is what it's going to cost you. This is what needs to be done. And you're like, well, I'm not ready to do that yet. It does not cost you anything to do that. They'll do the research, they'll do it all. They'll make sure, you know, do you have the transfers to get for wherever it is that you needed to go? They'll look at the different of the insurance. Is it beneficial for you? So it's really, it's kind of like an investment. I mean, you've worked hard to earn that money and you're getting ready to do a family vacation or a couple vacation, and you want to make sure that what you're doing is invested the way you feel that it needs to be, that you can put all those troubles away because you've got somebody else taking those troubles on.
Yeah, you bet. I've also heard that if you use a travel agent, a lot of times there's perks that you can't get, you know, outside of having that travel agent. That a lot of times the hotels and whatnot will cater to the travel agents because they're bringing volume to the table. Is that accurate?
You know, I'm gonna be honest with you, I've not heard that. Because we do everything through our custodian. So we very seldom do we book hotels. Like we won't just pull it up in the system and just book it, unless maybe it's Boise because they're flying out of Boise and they get a hotel to stay, you know, that way. But we use part of the consortium that we use has a contract with Beds Online. And so they get discounts that way.
Gotcha.
And do it that way. Yeah.
Very good.
Let me dive down deep a little bit on one particular type of vacation, and that would be cruises. What would be something you would recommend as far as do's or don'ts that would make sure that you have a good experience in your 50 plus cruises? What would you say?
I would say probably the number one would be make sure I'm invited. We took the last probably 20 years, we probably took a group, you know, every other year. And it worked out really well. And I made deals with them. And I'm like, you know, I'm your travel agent until you get on the ship, and then you're completely on your own to enjoy your life and all that and everything. You know, maybe to clarify a little bit and correct me if this is the direction you're going with it, Dan, is that somebody comes in and they want to go on a cruise or they want to go with a group of people. Are they trying to decide which cruise line type of a thing? Well, each one of them are a little bit different. They're all the same, but a little bit different. I know Carnival has a reputation of being the big party ship. I can tell you I've been on Princess, or Holland, and both of those are geared more for the older people. But they have kids on there because grandparents take kids and family and stuff like that. So if it's the party scene that you want to stay away from and stuff, then don't hang out at the big pool, because that's where it's at. Or like a sports bar or something like that, you know, type of a thing. But Carnival has grown so much into more of a family thing that they're starting to not see as much of that, type of a thing. The other thing I ask is, so you want to do this cruise, we already have the destination. Let's say we want to do, a Western Caribbean that'll go down into Honduras and a couple of places down in that area and stuff. Then my first question is what do you want to do on the 2 to 3 days that you're going to have on the ship? Do you want to just lounge around? Do you want to enjoy the sun? Do you want to be able to have activities? So if activities are important to you, then you're going to want to do the newer ships that are starting to come out. And it's the bad part about that is these newer ships that are coming out are between 5,000 and 6,000 people. Carnival just released that they are getting a new one and it's 6,800 people. I don't want to get on something that's going to be in the water that has 6,800 people. I'll drive down Blue Lakes because it's just, you're waiting on the line for everything. So a lot of it depends, like Royal Caribbean's really good with it. NCL's really good. They have so many activities along with Carnival, especially if you've got kids. They've got arcades. A couple of them have bumper cars that you can do. So it comes down to the agent doing the interview with the individual to find out exactly, first of all, who's going. Is it just mom and dad? Are you going to get away from the kids? Is it a special reason why you're going? Are the kids going? And if they are, that's awesome. What a lifetime experience for them. But let's find something for them to do. And since I'm talking about children and stuff, one thing I do want to make clear so that people fully understand is the cruise lines have kids programs from almost any age up to the age of 17. And not everybody, but a good portion of them, they're like, I don't know these people. I don't know if I want to do it. Parents are more than welcome to join them on stuff. They do like a safari hunt for kids that are like from 3 to 6. And so the group hides little stuffed animals and whoever can find it first, they get to keep that, type thing that way. They do so many different things and they're done by age groups. So you've got like 3 to 5, 3 to 6, and then you go from 7 to 10, and then it kind of moves on that way. So that is something to check out. It is not required with your kids. It is totally optional, and there is no fee for it.
One thing that I might add on the last cruise that we went, just to concur, that was exactly what happened. They had age groups activities, and they also gave to we went with my son and daughter-in-law, gave her a cell phone that was only good for on the ship there. And so if there was a need or they needed to contact mom or dad, that the youth center had a way to contact them. But it was a lot of fun and very, very friendly and easy to use. So I think that was a great thing for us. While we're talking about kids, I might just mention as you're planning for those types of things for taking kids, maybe you could help me out with this. As far as kids just need to they don't have a driver's license, they just need to bring their birth certificate.
So if they are traveling and you're going, say, to the Caribbean, not the US islands, but the other Caribbean islands and stuff, passports are highly recommended. And the reason why, if a child has a passport, they're good for 5 years. If adults have a passport, they're good for 10. You can actually go with a certified copy of the birth certificate from the state you were born. You cannot use the original one. You can't use a photocopy. So you would have to contact the state. So that is one thing. If they are in school, like high school, junior high, they will have a photo ID. So they need to take that. That's more for the plane, or for the plane than it is for when you go that way. Mm-hmm. The reason why the US requires, or would like, they don't require it unless you're over the age of 18, but the passports is, say like you go to Honduras and you're there and the kids are having a blast and you're walking back to the ship and one trips and breaks an ankle. You most likely aren't going to be able to get back on the ship because you probably will end up at the hospital. I mean, this is pretty dramatic by going outside of this, but if you can't get back on the ship to get back in the States, you're gonna have a major issue. So that's why they recommend passports, that if you happen to have something medically happen like that and you need to get back home, it's very difficult to get back into the States without a passport.
Okay.
The reason why you don't need it for the cruise is because if they do US port to US port, so like if you go out of New Orleans or Galveston or any of that, or even on the West Coast, they're going out of that port and returning back to that port. That's where you're protected by the US.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, good to know.
So Robin, I've got another question for you.
Go for it.
About what about travel or like airline points and credit cards that accumulate points on airlines and you know, joining Marriott's, you know, frequent flyer kind of things, you know, any of those sorts of things. What are your thoughts about all those programs, and are those valuable to stay loyal to one brand and kind of add those up? Like, is that part of your travel strategy, or what are your thoughts?
Well, if you looked at my travel package at home, I probably have a hotel card for just about every hotel we've been at, because there's no cost. So if it's a place that we enjoy going to, I'm going to use the same hotel and I'm racking up points. There's no cost for that whatsoever. Same thing with the credit cards. I would research that and see which one of those is more beneficial for you and what they give you credit for. And the reason why I'm saying that is you're going to get a MasterCard that may not be tied to any airline, but you can get an American Express that's tied to Delta. So you get extra points there. And once you rack them up, you can use them for hotel nights. You can get free mileage tickets. You can get companion tickets. So eventually it would pay off for it. And it's not going to cost you anything unless you start using your credit card. Of course, you have to pay that with the interest on it. Type of a thing that way. But yeah, I recommend it. I think it's beneficial down the road. You might not see a return on it, you know, for 2 or 3 years, depending on how much you travel, but eventually it will be beneficial.
So if we came to a travel agency and said, hey, I'd prefer to fly Delta and I'd prefer to stay at a Marriott to, you know, lean into our rewards or points, or you just prefer those airlines, is that something that can be navigated?
Oh, definitely. And we're going to ask you, we're going to say, you have a preference of airline. And if you say Delta, also you've got a Delta mileage number. So we'll get that from you so that you get credit for the airline ticket we just did. And then also you're wanting a Marriott. Oh, are you part of the Marriott family? And then that way we've got it. Then there's just like all the other businesses, they have client bases. We just keep track of that. And then that way we don't have to ask you because we did such a great job. You're going to come back the next year.
Yeah, perfect. So basically $50 a booking. So that would be, let me clarify, $50. So if I take 6 of my children, or 4 of my children and my wife and I, and we go on a cruise, is that one booking or is that 6 bookings?
Nope, that's one booking because you're all under the same confirmation number.
So is that the destination confirmation number, or is that like if you're gonna go to, you know, I don't know, one place and then you're gonna end up going to another place?
It's all booked at the same time under the same. So like if, let's say that you're gonna go to the Caribbean and you're gonna bounce around on a couple of islands. So it doesn't matter. You're gonna spend 3 days here, you're gonna go over to the Bahamas and spend a couple of days, and then you're gonna go to Jamaica for a couple of days. It's all included in one booking. And I kind of look at it this way and explain it. So you're going to leave out of Twin Falls because you support the community. So you're going to leave out of Twin Falls. You're going to go to these 3 islands. You're going to come back to Twin Falls. That's one big circle. That's one big booking.
Gotcha.
So it's $50. It's not per person, not by confirmation number. No.
So if it's worth $50 to us and relinquishing control of the details, then there's really no reason not to use someone helping you putting it together. Sounds like
that's exactly right. And the only other thing I would say on that to anybody that's listening is that if you are looking at something specific and you're pretty much sure of what your dates are going to be, you need to be really careful of your destination and how far out to book. I can tell you that airline tickets, you cannot book out any further than 11 months. And where that really hurts a lot of people is Alaska, because Alaska goes from the middle of May to about the middle of September, a little bit that way. If we start booking Alaska cruises usually in September and August. If you called today and you wanted to do a specific one, or you wanted to do like an inside Alaska cruise or something, you're probably going to end up paying a lot more money than you would have if you would have booked it 6 months ago, because of the market and it's such a short window.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll tell you
awesome.
one quick follow-up
Yeah, go ahead.
question. In some of your notes here, you mentioned not to use airport chargers and then flip-flops for showers.
Well, I put the flip-flop on there because I've learned my lesson on that. Depending on where you're gonna go. Now, the cruise lines, you're okay, because they, you know, they clean that and stuff like that. Mexico, Belize sometimes, you know, because of the weather, the humidity and all that and everything, even though they clean them, the bottom of those showers can either be slick or something like that. And so I tell all my clients, you know, take a pair of flip-flops. It doesn't take up any room whatsoever. But please do not wear your flip-flops into town because of the way the sidewalks are in those foreign countries, that you can do that and stuff. So that's, you know, that's one thing. Before we go though, one thing I do want to let everybody know that I live by is you don't know if you're gonna run into obstacles on your travel days. So I highly recommend that you take a carry-on, and if you're like, I don't want to take a carry-on, then take a backpack and put a complete change of clothing. So if you're going someplace warm, take a tank top or take a shirt, take a pair of shorts, you know, take an extra pair of socks or something that way. Have it that way. If your luggage gets delayed or if you get delayed, you can freshen up and have that. And always, always pack your meds in your carry-on. Never pack it in your suitcase.
So what you're saying is if my kids had done that, they wouldn't have showed up 3 days later in the clothes that they were wearing 3 days before.
Pretty much.
Good point. Yeah.
And then if you travel with passports, if you're doing international travel instead of just visiting or something like that, if you've done that in the past, I'm sure you probably know this, but always I do it 2 ways. I take a picture of it on my phone and then make a copy of your passport. And don't store your copy and your passport in the same place. Because in that way, if something happens and you lose your passport or you misplace it and you can't find it, you can always go to the embassy and you'll have your copy of it and be much easier to get it replaced to get home.
Very good. Well, appreciate, again, you are retired from where?
Desert Sun Travel.
Okay. Brian, you want to wrap up and
Yeah,
take us
thank you,
home?
Robin. Appreciate your time and coming into the office and hanging out with us a little bit. desertsuntravel.com, is that how people could find that company you retired from?
Oh, for the website, yes.
Okay, so the contact information would be there. And yeah, you know, we don't want to send people your direction necessarily, but if we have people that ask us, we'll definitely work through Desert Sun if needed, and if they find their way to you, then great. So
Well, if they do, Brian, it's really not that big of a deal because I can refer them to, they know what they're looking for, to one of the agents that specializes more into that than anything.
perfect.
I won't turn them away.
Yeah, sounds great. All right, well, thanks so much, and we'll wrap this episode of Elevánt Insights up by announcing next month's Elevánt Insight. So next month's Elevánt Insight will be on March 15th. It is tax season, so you've probably been in contact with your accountant already. If you haven't, you're probably in the middle of gathering all of your stuff, and so we are excited to talk about some new announcements with Elevánt Wealth in relation to our ability to help with taxes, as well as talking just tax tips and high-level things to consider in reference to tax strategy and tax planning as you come into tax season again this year. So everybody's favorite topic, we go from travel and leisure and straight into the thick of it, which is taxes. So look forward to that conversation coming up in a month from now, and have a great rest of your February, and we'll be in touch here soon. And don't hesitate to reach out if we can help in any way. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you again.
Thank you. Bye.